Just one new local case in Victoria. One in hotel quarantine, but only one outside that case. Like the others, is linked to hotel quarantine. So there are now 21 active cases in Victoria. Their sources are all known. They're all linked to hotel quarantine. Yet 6.5 million people are locked down. You know the story. Casual workers are losing 5 days' pay. Small businesses are making 5 days of heavy losses. Kids, unbelievably, kids have lost the best part of another week of school. People 600 kilometres from Melbourne are locked down. People are being forced to wear masks everywhere, indoors and out. Weddings cancelled, funerals reduced to just tiny groups of mourners. For 21 cases across a week, just one new one outside hotel quarantine today, and the whole state locked down. Over 3 days of lockdown so far, 4 local cases have been discovered. Daniel Andrews and his government don't call this a lockdown, they call it a circuit breaker. I call it an over-the-top, panicked, draconian and damaging overreaction that's only happening because of bureaucratic incompetence and political panic. Andrews points to lockdowns in Perth and Brisbane where there were solitary infections as examples of success. No, they're examples of failure. Just like Andrews, those states imposed lockdowns that were unnecessary. Their cures were worse than the outbreaks. And that's the verdict not just of me, but of one of our leading epidemiologists nationally, Professor Peter Collignon. You've heard him on this show. All you need to do now is look at New South Wales. 4 times as many people returning through overseas quarantine, many outbreaks bigger than the one Melbourne is facing now, but never a statewide lockdown, never a curfew, never this sort of blunt, over-the-top trauma inflicted on the population. In New South Wales over the weekend, rules were relaxed even further, doubling the number of people who could turn up at restaurants and hotels. And even though there was a major outbreak on the northern beaches in December and other cases elsewhere, the state has now gone through a record 29 days without new local infections. For the first time in a year, it can be done. So as I said last week, the answer for Daniel Andrews in Victoria is obvious. As I implored him to do on Friday, ring the New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian and her Chief Health Officer Kerry Chant. They'll help you. We are one country. Do what they would do. Instead of shutting down your state, blocking Australians from returning from overseas, just swallow your pride and ask people who have been managing these issues better, more competently for a year, to the great benefit of their state and their country. Now, Andrews is far too stubborn, of course, to take up that advice, but I note the Victorian opposition is now taking up my suggestion.
My message to Daniel Andrews this morning is very simple. Pick up the phone, call Gladys Berejiklian, ask her to send her officials down from Sydney to Melbourne to teach our officials how to manage hotel quarantine properly, how to manage contact tracing properly.
Now, Tim Smith went on to say that Andrews should resign. That's politics. But the call to get help from New South Wales is a sensible one. It's practical. It's the best thing to do for Victorians. Don't let state pride or political pride get in the way. Now, to give you an idea of how idiotic the Victorian government response is, have a look at this statement from Daniel Andrews on Friday. This is his official statement announcing his lockdown, what he calls a circuit breaker. But look what he says about the virus. He says the virus is smarter, faster and more infectious. Just think about how absurd, misleading and alarmist it is to call a virus smart and getting smarter. A clever little virus thinking about ways to outwit the Premier. Give me a break. And as for the faster and more infectious, well, that's just the same way, different way of saying the same thing. And again, it's alarmist language designed to make excuses for Victoria's over-the-top response. The UK strain is about 30% more infectious, so let's put that into some sort of context. Data from UK Health suggests that if a person infected with the original Wuhan strain had 100 close contacts, then 11 of them would be likely to get infected. If a person has this new UK strain, 14 or 15 of them might become infected. So it's more infectious, sure, but that is the order of difference we are discussing here. As we know, most people don't get sick, very few get seriously ill, even fewer are hospitalised and a tiny fraction die. And mortality rates, pleasingly, around the world have plummeted over the past year from about 7% to 2% globally, and in the UK from 15% down to below 3%. We haven't had a death in Australia for 3 months. Only 2 people are in hospital with COVID-related diseases today, and we have more than 6,000 acute care beds available. We're using 2 of them. Vaccines are being rolled out overseas. They'll start here next week, and we need to come to grips with reality. We can't have states overreacting to tiny clusters of cases. Yes, we need to stamp them out. No one says let it rip. We don't want the nation overrun, but we need to control this the way New South Wales has controlled it, sensibly, not the way Victoria has done, inflicting unnecessary pain. It's a matter of policy, competence and courage, not a matter of dumb luck, which is how the apologists are framing it.
Absolutely, there's been a blunder, but there's also been bad luck, right? And anyone will tell you that luck has a lot to do with it. What happened in Perth and Brisbane, where they shut down, was also a bit of luck that it hadn't, been able to spread any further.
In some ways, it's also about luck. I mean, I sat and lived through...
So Daniel Andrews is just very unlucky?
No,
is that it?
No, the point being that this is a highly unpredictable virus, which is highly contagious. And in some cases, there has been a bit of luck or bad luck in both ways.
Yeah, just bad luck, hey? There's no luck involved in ordering a lockdown. There was no luck involved last year in slapping on a Victorian curfew without any advice demanding it. There's no luck involved in being slow and confused over contact tracing. There's no luck involved in telling country Victoria to lock down even when they haven't seen a case in their regions for months. But as you know, we've been probing these issues and making these arguments for almost a year now on Sky News. Today in Melbourne, though, at Daniel Andrews' press conference, an ABC presenter finally started to ask the obvious questions about overreaction.
How is it the case that their government still lacks such confidence in your hotel quarantine systems and your contact tracing that you apparently can't manage 2 to 3 cases of COVID a day in a population of about 6.3 million people? That all suggests that your system is actually working pretty well to contain it. So why the need for lockdown?
Why lockdown? Yeah, a bit late to the party, the ABC there, but finally asking the right questions. Predictably, however, Lee Sales was slammed on Twitter, that feral left social media platform, just like our own Gabriella Power or Peter Credlin, the Australians Rachel Baxendale and others. Ask the right questions of a Labor Premier and you become a social media target. Ugly stuff. But as you know, the truth matters, accountability matters. So today, Daniel Andrews wouldn't even say whether his latest lockdown will end on Wednesday night. Oh dear. And if it does end, when will he lock down again? I know how I'd feel about the lockdown and the alarmism from the politicians and the media if I were in Victoria, which is why I want to show you this bloke. His reaction to me, without any words, speaks volumes about how many people might feel when it comes to media hype and the dob in your mates mentality.
Barbecues along the Yarra sat idle, except for this one. But these mates weren't willing to explain. Did you realise there's a lockdown?
Can't wait for some of these snags. This is going to be good as.
Yeah, I think we get the picture. It's a long way from the democracy sausage, isn't it? More like a lockdown lash out.